Julius puts up a three. And goal!
Time for Bearcat Blitz, as we are in the midst of a Big 12 tournament run that stayed alive on Tuesday night, recording this episode on Wednesday afternoon, as I'm your co-host, Russ Eltman, coming to you from my normal spot at the radio station hub here at my day job, and Neil Meyer, my co-host of the Front Office News and All Bearcats. Check me out at allbearcats.com as well. Neil coming from an Airbnb in the Kansas City area, as the Bearcats kept him in that Airbnb one more night with a comeback victory, the biggest comeback victory in a second half in the Wes Miller era, down 16 to the West Virginia Mountaineers. They somehow pull victory from the teeth of defeat and win 90-85, thanks to a season-high 16 triples, including 7 each from Simas Lukosius and Day Thomas. Just an absolutely majestic offensive performance from those two to keep the season alive. We'll dive into that, plus give the latest NCAA tournament odds, what the Bearcats fans can hope for over the next few days to have the team get the job done ultimately and get to the NCAA tournament. Plus, we'll give a kind of small Kansas preview, because most people won't end up listening to this episode by the time the Kansas game takes off. And we'll preview Baylor as well, just to be optimistic, just to say, hey, will they actually get the job done? If so, we got a little preview of Baylor for the people. If not, I'm sure you're not going to want to listen to many Bearcats things anyways, if the UC goes down to a Kansas team missing Hunter Dickinson and Kevin McCullough. Before all that, though, I want to tell you about Bet Online, which continues to be your number one source for all your basketball wagering needs, including pro and college hoops throughout the year. With up-to-the-minute odds, stats, and trends, you can follow your favorite team's path to the playoffs with in-game live betting contests and all the best player props. Experience the world's best wagering platform anytime from your desktop or your mobile devices. Head to Bet Online today to become part of the team, and remember to use promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV for your 50% welcome bonus on that first deposit. Bet Online, the game starts here. Neil, you had a rafter seat, I would say. I wouldn't say it was a front row seat, but you had a rafter seat for the action on Tuesday afternoon. What was going to be arguably the worst day of the Wes Miller era yet turned into a majestic comeback.
Yeah, absolutely. And you joke about the rafter seating. All the media here in Kansas City is sitting on the 7th floor of the T-Mobile Center up top overlooking the stadiums. For those who are following along in the summer, each team gets 2 respected media members to sit courtside. And this year, it is our good friend Scott Springer and Keegan Nickinson of the Enquirer and Bearcat Journal. So they were sitting courtside while all the rest of the media for everyone else throughout the respective tournament was up top on the 7th floor. But overall, it was a majestic victory. I mean, Russ, if you would have asked me if we would have seen 2 players put up an absolute shooting clinic like we did last night, I don't think any of us could have predicted that. But, man, Simas Lukosius, Day Thomas, absolutely electric last night. And it was
so good, man.
Just an incredible – first of all, Simas Lukosius' second half. Let's talk about that. 26 of those 31 come in there in the second half. I mean, Russ, there was a time where I was looking to the media member next to me, and he was even sitting there saying, he was like, is this guy going to miss? Like, just continue to feed him.
How are they going to guard him? That was the other question, too. They gave him like 10 wide open shots. It was crazy.
And down the stretch, the final 12 minutes of the game, you see Cody Johnson get a technical foul for talking some trash to Dan Skillings after a layup. Silly mistake. Shouldn't have happened. Raekwon Battle gets teed up for arguing with an official. Jesse Edwards gets teed up following the play. 3 technical fouls in the span of 4 minutes of gameplay resulted in 6 automatic points for Cincinnati after burying all 6 free throws, which came from Simas Lukosius.
And a 5-point game, too, that we should add.
Yeah, on top of that. And you add, 2, Cincinnati came out of the 1 technical foul with Simas hitting both free throws, buries a 3. So you add that, that's a 9-0 run right there.
A 5-point possession by Simas alone.
Yeah. So overall, the technical fouls is what really killed West Virginia, because you're looking down at the stat sheet. That was West Virginia's best game of the season. Hate to say it, but I don't think they shot over 40% from the field at all this season. but yet alone 55% from the field and 5 players in double digits. This was a whole West Virginia team that just got blown out by basically 40 on Saturday at Fifth Third Arena. And we talked about it, Russ, how this is going to be one of those odds where it could come in and it could either be another blowout or it could be a close game. Wes Miller and his team find themselves down 16, come back to win it in the final seconds of this one. But it really, that final 12 minutes, Simas Lukosius, Dede Thomas combined for 36 of the team's final 44 points. The other 8 points in that run, 7 of them came from Dan Skillings, and Aziz Bandego finished with 1 free throw in that mark. Overall, relentless second half effort. And I mean, it's funny, Russ, we even got to talk to Simas Lukosius and Aziz Bandego and a couple others in the locker room after the game. Simas Lukosius actually made the comment that his 2 career highs have came in big conference tournaments, and he said that he is built for games like this, and he loves playing in these type of environments. And he even kind of joked around and was like, maybe I'll go out there and beat my career high tomorrow night versus Kansas. So we'll have to see. But man, it was a gutsy performance to say the least. But we got to give credit where credit is due. Aziz Bandego, Russ, last night, phenomenal.
Yeah, his performance getting a little lost, but not to be lost at all.
Yeah,
13 rebounds, needed every one of them.
Needed every one of them. Jesse Edwards was having a field day in the paint. Finished 7 or 8 for 17 points. I mean, this was a game where if Jesse Edwards doesn't get in foul trouble, I think it could go a different way. And West Virginia got in the foul trouble. They picked up the technical fouls, and next thing you know, it was like a momentum switch. But you got it. First off, second of all, you got to tip your hat off to Josh Eilert for what he was able to do, what he had to overcome in West Virginia this season. It wasn't easy, but he weathered the storm due to the Bob Huggins situation. You get Kirk Risa suspended, Raekwon Battles waiver issues. Jesse Edwards breaks a hand. Like, this West Virginia team didn't even have a full season together. Like, we talk about, Russ, about what this Cincinnati lineup could have been like if they had the whole season together without the waiver situation. But the same goes to that West Virginia, in my opinion. It really does. But overall, a gutsy performance on the road last night. But they have a quick turnaround here versus Kansas tonight, and I'm excited to see how this one goes.
Yeah, that West Virginia team straight up quit on Saturday, and somehow Josh Eilert got them motivated, ready to go to give one last valiant effort in this game. Ultimately, not enough, obviously, as the Bearcats get it done 90-85. Where would this team be without Dede Thomas and Simas Lukosius? They'd be at home right now. 60 combined points. Not exactly sure when the last time a Bearcats duo has combined for 60. Does not happen very often. I don't know if 2 teammates have ever in UC history combined for 7 made threes on high efficiency at that. 14 for 22, those 2 combined from outside in major moments. I mean, Dede Thomas, the final 3 minutes of the game, he goes, I think, at least 2 for 2 from deep, maybe 3 for 3.
And talk about the play to end it. That shot with 4 seconds left, or it was about 5 seconds left. We got to talk about that. That was a great play call out of the inbounds. Jizzle James gets blocked. Jesse Edwards sent it 6 rows into the stands. Wes Miller gets the inbound play, draws up a beautiful inbounds play, gets Dan Skillings in isolation, draws triple help. Skillings kicks to a wide open Dede Thomas, and that was it. That was the dagger right there, and that was a beautiful play call in that situation. And man, it was just an overall gutsy victory here.
No doubt. And West Virginia, they had some lucky shooting here and there, but ultimately, Neil, I mean, they created great offense in that first half. They did a great job offensively, getting to their sets, getting to their spots, and UC just wasn't as locked in as they were on Saturday. They weren't as hungry coming into this game. It was kind of that classic, let the foot off the gas pedal a little bit. We just beat this team by 35. How much effort, how much life are they really going to have? You could kind of see that in the first half, and then things flipped after really the first 6 minutes of the second half. I mean, after that first 6-8 minute stretch, you're down 16 points. The fan base is absolutely in shambles. The winning percentage is going to look like, I think it was 95% in favor of West Virginia.
I think it was like 95.6 or something like that, while they were up 12 at the 12-minute mark.
Right. So it's just all the chips stacked against UC. And what did they do? Just like the last game they played inside a T-Mobile Center, they come back from a 15-plus point deficit. They did it against Illinois in Wes Miller's first game away from Fifth Third Arena, I think, as head coach of this program. And they did it in their first Big 12 tournament game at T-Mobile Center in the inaugural season. What an amazing, amazing comeback, Neil. I thought they were dead. I thought they were dead, especially considering how poorly this team has shot from three this season and how poor. I mean, that Day Thomas performance from deep, 7 of 10 to shoot 70% from deep. Neil, I don't think he's made 7 threes in the past 3 weeks total, let alone to go 7 of 10 from deep, a guy that was shooting going into this game less than 24% from three. And on the flip side, Simas Lukosius kind of just added lighter fluid to what he has been doing from deep of late. Over the last 6 weeks, Simas Lukosius has been the best shooter on the team, and he got a sharp shooting running mate to go with him. And as you mentioned, he loves these big moments. He has been brought up in this game from birth. We've talked about that with Simas on this show, how much he just thrives in major big-time basketball moments. His previous career highs set last year in the Big East tournament, from what I remember. And then he goes and sets his Xavier.
27.
There you go. So does it again in his first game in the Big 12 tournament. He's a big-time player, built for big-time moments. And at least if the Bearcats don't pull off the incredible and win 2 to 3 more games and end up getting in either one of those last at-large bids or punching that overall get you in the dance ticket of a Big 12 tournament champion, it's a major factor that you can hang your hat on going into next season of thinking, look at how Lukosius has overcome injury, overcome issues in his first few months in Cincinnati, and got on to really elevate above what he was playing like at Butler last year. That's exactly what you want to see, and it's a trend that should make fans believe Simas Lukosius could be one of the preeminent scorers in the Big 12 and the driver of this offense in 2024, 2025.
Yeah, and that's a great sight to see because everybody knows what a fully healthy Simas Lukosius is capable of, and we're getting a great glimpse of it down the stretch. I mean, Russ, you talked about what he had to deal with throughout the first maybe 3 months of heading into this season. I mean,
right.
Twisted ankle.
First time dealing with injuries, gets hit by the car. It's just one thing after another.
Yeah, and now look at him. He has simply became arguably Cincinnati's best player down the stretch. I mean, heading into the Big 12 tournament, I believe over his last 6 games, he was shooting 42% from three. That number's probably sitting closer to 47, 48% now after that shooting clinic he put on yesterday. But, I mean, it's something about Simas Lukosius that lights this team on fire because he even told us he's been playing with more aggression. He even said the second half yesterday, I asked him about the adjustments there, what he saw to really allow that 26-second half. He said West Virginia wasn't doing anything more early. He had to play.
I love that he said that. I love that he was like, they were really guarding me, basically.
He just said he wanted to play more aggressive. He got the first couple to fall, and he wanted to play more aggressive. And once shots started to fall, he just started shooting. And that's the kind of confidence you need, especially heading into these multi-day tournaments. And if the Bearcats are riding their confidence, I mean, the confidence, Russ, I can tell you after the game in that locker room, it was through the roof. It was through the roof. And if you can feel that confidence building right now, I mean, you got to heading into a banged-up Kansas team, you're potentially able to make a run and get off the bubble watch and find a way to get into this NCAA tournament. I mean, right now, Cincinnati's playing its best basketball of the season, if you ask me. They string together their first pair of conference victories, Russ. Yeah. All conference season. That's something you've been harping on them on all season. They get the back-to-back wins in Big 12 play heading into Kansas. Right now, momentum is flying high for Cincinnati.
And they're about to take on a Jayhawks team where the Bill Self-led Kansas team, is an underdog in a Big 12 tournament game for the first time in the history of his Jayhawk tenure. That's what missing Kevin McCullough and Hunter Dickinson does to this matchup. We'll dive into that at the end of the show and kind of wrapping up the big victory over West Virginia. They take the all-time series lead. They had tied it up on Saturday. They take, I believe, a 13-12 or 12-11 all-time series lead among these two schools. It's going to be a staple rivalry for the next who knows how long. These two teams are in the Big 12. It should be the preeminent basketball geographic rivalry in that conference in terms of the Midwest teams in the Big 12. So big victory for the Bearcats, 90-85 win. And just looking at some other guys, you did this, Neil, with just 3 points from John Newman III. It felt like he was really coming on and then just kind of hit a wall a bit in that game, ends up fouling out, was just dealing with foul trouble throughout the day, never able to really get into a rhythm. I don't think it was, him really playing awful or anything like that. It was just inability to get into the game, so to speak. Aziz Bandago also fouls out. He didn't have a great day offensively, 2 for 5 from the field. Jizzle James had a bad day offensively, 1 for 6 from the field. You just didn't really get a lot of impact anywhere else. When you think about nearly a third of your points coming from coming from those two guys. So,
and Dan Skilling's also added 13. So you add those 13 to the 60. That's 73 of your 90 right there coming from
right.
Key
and Dan played really well, I thought. Just really, really good. Just it's another game, Neil, where you're putting up a 20% 3-point mark. If he hits 2-3 of those 5 3-point attempts, this is a blowout potentially. And it gets a lot closer, a lot quicker, so to speak. So you'd like to see those 3-point shots start to fall for Dan, but if the 3 ball is real with Day Thomas, if it is legit, if he can ride this heater for the rest of the tournament, it changes everything, Neil. It changes everything for this offense. We've said it all year long. They've needed one more consistent shooter, especially over the past few weeks. Just one more guy to get in that rotation that can open the floor a little bit more and get those bigs some easier looks down low. Maybe Day Thomas has found something. And as I mentioned with Simas Lukosius finding something and hitting higher heights this season at the end of the year than he posted throughout his time at Butler. Same thing for Day Thomas. He is trending up at the right time. Seems like he is taking a step at the right time. And what's he doing next year? Coming back to Clifton for another round of Bearcats ball in 2024, 2025. Not looking that way yet, though, because of that victory over West Virginia. Take a quick break here on Bearcat Blitz. Look at where the UC team stands in this bracket, what the path looks like for the rest of the Big 12 tournament, and what the percentages look like changed-wise after West Virginia, if they changed at all. Coming up on Bearcat Blitz. Neil, big win for Cincinnati over West Virginia. They steal the season from the brink of just disaster. It would have been a brutal, brutal loss for them to go down to the Mountaineers. And now they take on a Kansas team that is missing Hunter Dickinson and
Kevin McCullough.
Yes, Hunter Dickinson and Kevin McCullough. They're projected to win that game. Favored by 2.5 points now on DraftKings Sportsbook. It is also, and really any sportsbook you look at, as well as Bet Online. And you think about them winning that game, then you welcome in a matchup, another 9:30 tip against Baylor, should you get the job done there, and likely facing either, I think it's like some mixture of Texas, Oklahoma, TCU, something like that, right on the other side of the bracket.
Yeah, if TCU or Oklahoma, the winner of that game will play Houston. So more than likely, if they go beat Kansas, beat Baylor, they're looking at a matchup with Houston potentially in the semifinals.
Right, because Houston's going to be favored to get that victory over whoever comes out of that trio or that duo of teams in the TCU and Oklahoma matchup. Which, if you're looking at games today, Tuesday for the Bearcats, some massive, massive games that people should have rooting interest in are that TCU game. That's going to be huge, huge, huge for Cincinnati to see. I think a TCU loss would be clutch for the Bearcats. They need that to happen because Oklahoma is almost a lock to get in. And then if a TCU victory happens, that just adds to their resume and is another team roadblocking you from getting into the tournament. Around the rest of the country, Providence right on the bubble, Neil. You'd love to see an upset by Georgetown in the Big East tournament. And sticking in the Big East as well, Villanova taking on DePaul, the Wildcats of Villanova, right on the bubble as well. It's not going to happen. DePaul is not going to beat Villanova in the Big East tournament tonight. But I mean, crazier things have happened for sure as 22-1 underdogs that the DePaul Blue Demons are. So DePaul, Georgetown, you'd love to see them get money line victories, and Air Force as well. Air Force taking on I forget who Air Force is actually playing today. I think they might be playing New Mexico, Air Force versus New Mexico. So how that all goes down is going to seriously affect the Bearcats. You need as many teams, Neil, as possible, especially those 3 teams, to go down in these games to be able to just keep inching your way towards at large ladder. You keep inching your way up the levels so you can get as close as possible.
Yeah, and it's a great thing you mentioned the TCU game. Obviously, reports just came out live from Kansas City that Oklahoma is actually going to be without Rivaldo Soares and John Hughley for this one. So the odds are playing right now in TCU's favor. But as many of us know, Russ, this is the Big 12. It's the best conference in America. Anything can happen on any given day. I mean, anything's possible in any of these matchups. Plus, it is also March. You never know what may happen in all of college basketball. But right now, those are three big games to keep an eye on. But if Oklahoma can somehow get the job done for TCU, that opens the path a little more for Cincinnati, in my opinion, because you think about it, Cincinnati has the home win versus TCU, and TCU has the home blowout over Cincinnati. And TCU has been a team that has been competing in the Big 12 all season long. But if Oklahoma can find a way to knock them out early in the Big 12 tournament and the Bearcats continue their path throughout this tournament, the odds are trending in heavily in Cincinnati's favor if Oklahoma can get the job done at the 3 p.m. slot this afternoon.
Yeah, and we got to correct something real quick here, Neil. We were looking at the wrong side of the bracket. We were looking at the top part for Houston, Cincinnati in the bottom part of the bracket. So they will face most likely Iowa State should they beat Baylor tomorrow night and beat Kansas tonight. And Iowa State is taking on Thursday the winner of the 10-seeded Kansas State game versus the 7-seeded Texas Longhorns. So probably hoping for a Kansas State win. You're probably then again, though, Neil, you probably need Iowa State to be in that game to have your at-large hopes stay alive. I don't think a Kansas State victory. You need that Q1 path. You need stacking Q1 wins. You need three straight Q1 wins here.
Yep, stack 3 right there. You're good.
Right. So the Bearcats fans, I think you just honestly hope that the highest seeds win these contests and that UC can end up beating those highest seeds to give them the best chance of getting that at-large bid, which I think it's pretty safe to say they need to get to the championship game to have a real puncher's chance of getting their name called as an at-large team. Obviously, if you win that championship, you're going to be looking at, I'd say, Neil, like a 12 or 11 seed, most likely a 12 seed. It would be slotted as an unpredicted major conference champion, and it would look something like that. But as we wrap this up, Cincinnati on team rankings right now has a 11% chance to make the NCAA tournament, just a 10% chance from 9% before the West Virginia game of an at-large bid. So still hope there. We'll see what happens. We get into a quick break on Bearcat Blitz, looking at quick previews of Kansas and Baylor. Cincinnati ready to trek the path of Big 12 tournament glory. Kansas tonight as the number 6 seed. Baylor on Thursday if they get the job done. Both of those games, I believe, will be at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. And then similar on Friday, 9:30 Eastern, the semifinal game. If UC can run the gauntlet over these next 2 days and get to that one, they would most likely face Iowa State in the matchup, but the Cyclones did just lose to Kansas State over the weekend, who could be their next opponent should they take out Texas today in the 10-7 game in the second round. Looking at Kansas, Neil, it's probably going to be a lot of KJ Adams, a lot of Johnny Furphy, not much more time, honestly, that we can dive into it besides that. But the top 2 scorers from Kansas out 18-plus points per game each in Kevin McCullough and Hunter Dickinson. Those guys are massive factors, and it's the biggest reason why UC is favored to beat Kansas. A Kansas opponent is favored to take them out in the Big 12 tournament for the first time in over 20 years.
Yeah, absolutely. And all the height advantage plays right now to Cincinnati's favor with Hunter Dickinson and Kevin McCullough out. But a guy you haven't mentioned, Russ, is I'm going to go DeJuan Harris, the vet point guard. I think he's going to have to step up tremendously for Kansas if they want to make a run here in the conference tournament. So you got to add him into there with Johnny Furphy. I expect them to play KJ Adams at the 5. That's just realistically only option. I think the Bearcats can exploit that if that is the option. But those are some things to keep an eye on heading into Kansas tonight.
That they are, and some ball handlers, Neil, some major players in this rotation for Kansas that aren't used to playing
heavy minutes.
10 minutes, let alone 25, 30, which is what they're going to be looking at this evening. And interesting to see the ESPN Basketball Power Index, despite UC being a 2.5-point favorite, still has Kansas as a 75.9% favorite to win this game. Not quite sure if they have factored in the injuries. I'm assuming they did because the projection just came out today, but maybe they did not. That's a big discrepancy right there. And what could be a big discrepancy in terms of just UC being an underdog on Thursday would be the matchup against Baylor if they can get there, Neil. Baylor, one of the most balanced teams in the entire country, 22-9 this season. They have 6 players. I believe they're the only power conference team in the country with 6 players, Neil, averaging at least 10 points per game. Brutal matchup for UC, but they played them really tight in the first and only matchup this season, 62-59 on the road. Just that dastardly late game execution that did them in like it did them in during so many brutal, close losses in the Big 12 this season.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a Baylor team that's spearheaded by Jacoby Walter, Ray J. Dennis, a very talented veteran backcourt. Jacoby Walter is a top 10 NBA draft prospect. So overall, this is a very dangerous Baylor team, and they're coming off playing some of their best ball right now. But Cincinnati played them well on the road through the first matchup, but it's going to be interesting to see what may happen if they get that matchup on Thursday.
Yep, Baylor's won 3 of their past 4 games, but they did drop their last contest, the last one of the year, 78-68 to Texas Tech, one of the best offensive teams in the country, 81.5 points per game, and in conference, 76.1 points per game. That is third among all Big 12 teams. For Neil Meyer, I'm Russ Altman. A little quick preview of the upcoming days in the Big 12 tournament. We'll see if the Bearcats are still alive. And quick programming note, Neil will be flying solo next week. I will have the week off. I want to wish you a happy, healthy tournament action for the entire conference slate and NCAA tournament. For Neil Meyer, I'm Russ Altman. This has been Bearcat Blitz.
This is the second. 15 seconds left. Shot clock off. 4-point game. DeJulius puts up a 3.